All right. First and foremost, I want to give our praise, honor, and glory to and honor to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushua, Bashem Kakwadash. Second, I want to give double honor to Apostle G. Master as well, our beloved elders and teachers. And last but least, um, peace, blessings, salutations to the whole free elect, those that are scattered, the Hebrew Israelites. This gospel, these messages, these epistles are given to our people, which consists of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanic, Native Americans, West Indians, which make up the 12 tribes today. Um, so again, back on, he's asking questions, Chat GPT, and some atrocities that took place on the tribe of Gad in history that you could also look up. I remember when I was in Puerto Rico, I used to go to the library a lot, and I used to see a lot of Gadite books. I wish I could have, got my hands on them. Been so long. I used to look at Issachar, the Aztecs, the Incas, so-called Native Americans, and they used to have a lot of depictions, a lot of built-up infrastructure, showing the history, showing them that they're great people, and showing them, the fate, things of, basically it's showing different patterns, how they conduct themselves, their rituals, their rites, their, their daily activities. But through the scripture, they are indeed the tribe of Gad. We understand that they spoke Hebrew. Well, their so-called Native American tongue is a broken dialect of Hebrew. Those other so-called Hispanic, Latino, Indian tribes, which pretty much when you really have to go into a lot of studying, digging in a lot of books. It's evident that Esau hatred is strong. So-called blacks here in America. What is that going into Ezekiel? I believe 35. The perpetual hatred. And I also bring out Obadiah and how the things that Esau searched out. Because one thing for sure, through the spirit of Yahweh Shem Rashad, the Lord's will, I'm part of that number, the elect. The prophets are out there exposing. And regardless of the trials, adversity, this is not a cool thing. This is not something that's pushed on mainstream. We understand Esau uses his media, witchcraft, sorcery to pretty much distort the minds and keep people distracted and not focused and give them folly and vanity. And this is ultimately how Esau was able to eradicate and displace so-called Native Americans. So, the near extinct, so how did the Native American almost go extinct? And the near extinction of many Native American population was the result of a complex combination of disease, warfare, displacement, and colonization following European, which we know those Europeans are Edomites, contact starting in the late 15th century. Here's a breakdown of the main causes. Because remember, 1492 to 1500s, Columbus was destroying the islands, and then you had those settlers that was in the mainland of America, Babylon the Great, going to war with Gad, and ultimately, the um, years go by, all the way from the first president. Well, from the 15th century all the way to the first president. I believe the first president was in the 1700s, late 1700s. Let me see, who was the first president? So it said the first president of the United States was elected in February 4, 1789. And yeah, so from the 15th century all the way to 1789, throughout all the policies and the legislation of the U.S. presidents, they all had a hand with destroying and taking over Gad's land and their places that they dwell. So it says, and remember also, you know, during the late 1500s, going into the early 1600s, that's when the so-called black men came over here. So it says, number one, disease, primary cause. So when Europeans, Edomites arrived in the Americas, they brought with them diseases like smallpox, measles, influenza, and typhus. And we understand, and you can't say that this is lying. Because I remember growing up hearing these things as a child, way before even internet was around. So I heard about all these things, and it's kind of funny. Um, that smallpox and the chicken pox, I'll never forget that shit. How Esau even did a little experiment on the chicken pox. But I remember I broke out in that shit. I remember I took a shot. Esau gave me a shot, and I broke the fuck out. So yeah, experiment. And I remember they was talking about yeah, all the kids during that age in the 90s, early 90s, was giving those shots. So it, because all the kids were prone or something he said. And now all of a sudden, we don't hear nothing about it. And it's not something, Esau said, oh yeah, we killed. Nah, fuck out of here. It was all an experiment. So Native Americans had no immunity to these diseases, and epidemics decimated entire populations. In some areas, up to 90% of the population died within a few decades of the first contact. Two, violence and warfare. European Edomite colonization led to conflicts over land and resources, massacres and raids by settlers and colonial armies, enslavement and forced labor, particularly by the Spanish and Portuguese in early colonial periods. This resulted in the deaths of countless native people and the destruction of communities. So you got to understand, the scripture talks about how Gad, a troop overcame him, but he shall um, come roughly, he should get abroad. So I remember, hold on. I'll never forget this video right here back in the day. And there's also more. I'm not entertaining that shit. So this video here, I'll never forget this video right here. Well, you had one guy you can look up to. He fought and did a lot of activist things for a so-called American Indian. Uh, Russell, Russell, Russell. Damn, hold on. Russell Means. I'm trying to find that video. All right. So I never forget. Damn it. I never. Damn it, yo. Fucking YouTube. I'll never forget. Oh, man. This fucking. Damn. I always try to hold it like this. So I never forget. And it still did it. Damn it. I'm gonna just get the damn video. Fucking goodness, man. Come on. What the hell is this? Oh, fuck it.
eviction protest in Arizona. Let's hear what he had to say.
None of you. Get on with your bogus arguments. We're the only legal ones here. We have Native Americans here. Yeah. We should have put that sign up when you said it, bitches. Yeah, that's right. That represents blood. That represents blood spilled by Native Americans protecting this land from the invaders. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You don't want to hear the goddamn truth, do you? Get on, bitch. You don't want to hear the truth. That's what that flag stands for. All the Native Americans you killed to plant their houses here. That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Yeah,
Get on,
I remember.
No.
Esau always wanted,
What he's saying. That makes people uncomfortable.
and that's the thing about it. Esau always takes everything as a joke. And that's the picture of the guy. I think I can get it. Yeah, the Gadite. When I saw this was 12 years ago, right here. And I saw that, the spirit was on fire. But yeah, Esau has his history is very bloody. Underneath the terms of all this Christianity, love. It's funny, I watched the movie Sinners with the beloved brother Mattathiah in that part. When the Edomite vampires came in, all those lines, those lovable, peaceful, it's all about love, brother, the brotherhood, the fellowship of love. That just all made me think about Christianity, how Esau slithers in, and then all of a sudden you're displaced, you're out of a land, you're dead, everything's slaughtered, you're sick, or you're dismantled. And that's how Esau moves. That's how he conducts himself. He's tells you in the scripture how the son of perdition, shall be exposed in the end times. And we know him as the biblical Edomites because contrary to what the world believes and thinks and was told, the so-called white man is not white. There's no such thing as white. There's no such thing as black. Like, for instance, people will call me black, but I'm not the color of my shirt, And everybody has a nationality, but Esau was able to blend himself and intermingle, lie, cheat, steal, rape, rob, and murder, and attach. I want, this movie right here. I saw this as a kid. It wasn't one of my movies that I liked, but it was kind of funny that Esau made this movie, Master of Disguise. And I'm not sure if Jake remember this movie, but this was a movie that came out, and there was an Edomite that was able to just blend in with everything. He'll change, basically, he blends in. And that's what Esau was able to do. He was able to blend in and deceive and come in as, Christianity, love, fellowship, brotherhood, peace, etc. But, when you turn around, it was a dagger and a sword and a gun to your back. So continuing on, enslavement and forced labors, I read that sloppy. 3, forced displacement. So policy like the U.S. Indian removal, and I believe that was by Andrew Jackson. But it was, a lot, again, going back again, all those American presidents, every single one of them had a plot and a hand to taking of Gad's land, and actually it's an old, I don't know if the Esau still has it up, old Native American land chart. Let me see if they still have it up. So yeah, here it is right here. Lord's will, you can see it. You can see it. Hold on. Anybody can look it up. So that basically showed you the possession of Gad, and then from let me see how they got it. All right, so from 1794, 1784. Remember, I, let me. So, all right, here it is. So, from this is the first one is from 1784 to 1819, and remember, the first president came in at 1789. So, from 1789, and the chart starts getting decreasing, and the land mass starts decreasing. So, ever from from let me see, 1784, from the 1800s to the early 1800s to the mid 1800s, the late 1800s, all the way from the end of 1800s into the 1970s, all the way to 1972. And now you look at the last one is in the states present in the so-called Indian reservation. So, every president had a hand to do with, the destruction of Gad. So it says policy like the U.S. Indian Removal Act of 1830 led to the Trail of Tears, during which thousands of Cherokee and other tribes died from starvation, exposure, and disease, while being forcibly relocated. The loss of traditional lands making survival much more difficult. And that's also what Esau did to so-called black people too. They kept them on the move. They put not parks. They put highways. The elder GMS beauty tools. If I'm not Salaki, if I'm said the name wrong, but again, also as well, subscribe and to that page and get edified. But yeah, I believe it's GMS beauty tools. The elder in New York, one of the elders in New York, and he was pretty much going into how Esau pretty much put a lot of land masses, which we know today, those prominent so-called black areas, even here in Virginia, Petersburg, at one point Richmond, and there's other places. And you also had a lot of Gadite land masses here too, because if you go around Bob to Virginia, they always got so-called Native Indians, American Indians plots, especially when you go to like the mountains. It got those plots, so you can read it, and it'll show you how it was like not a reservation, but Gadites that were present in those areas. But unfortunately, they were moved. Same thing with so-called black people. Esau always had a snare and a trap in a way of moving, putting something over, flooding. Like I said, Esau never allowed our people to stand still and be able to achieve and stay and get a sure foot. And for certain as well, our people would never basically had a sure foot to set up a military as well, so they can counter attack the attacks on Esau. So we was never had the ability to really get an army, get a military, have gates and build up a structure. So Esau couldn't just come in, because Esau was always able to just swoop on in. And today you got niggas. That's why again, and even the elder James Beauty Tools, he even said the same thing. Jake is always talking about building here, getting money, getting wealth, starting a community, having families, the children. But my man, you got to understand. Anytime our people in history always showed that. Every time our people got established, got together, Esau came in. he either sent that Edomite woman in, and or those so-called white militias came in and it burnt our towns down, and a lot of Jake went missing, got hung, burnt alive, etc., beheaded. A lot of great injustice happened. So for cultural erasure and assimilation. So in the 19th and 20th centuries, Native children were taken from families and sent to boarding schools. You can all look that up, to erase their languages and cultures. Same thing they did to us as a whole. But when you go from the top tribe Judah all the way down to the so-called Mexican, Esau had a good hand into erasing all of our cultures and erasing our heritage. Like the scripture said, Jeremiah 14, you should discontinue from thine heritage. And it's being found out that in the land where you were told you are not the Lord's people, you are the Lord's people. And that's indeed, I was speaking with the beloved Elder Pasha as well. Me and him be sending a lot of things back and forth with Northern Kingdom, so-called Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and all, everybody that's in the know, um, it's 2025, and if you don't, and if you still got a doubt in your mind that so-called Puerto Ricans and Hispanics, Mexicans, Dominicans, Cubans are not tribes of Israel, I mean, like I said it, man, you need it. Somebody need to put hands and feet on you. But you're a complete fucking idiot, because those songs, the rhythm, and this it just the history of and all, the curses. Like the scripture says, Israel and Judah was oppressed together. And you read the book of the Black Indians, it shows that how you had Gad that was cool with Judah, Judah was cool with Gad, and yes, they had their skirmishes. Again, it's the atrocities, the pain, the agony which was going on. You had you always had pacts that were formed. Just like when you go into maybe like the mid 1900s, you had the Young Lords, you had the Black Panthers, and you had the Brown Pride movement. And let me see if I can pull that up. So periodically, like the scripture says, how you said the Lord shall raise up a stick, roughly paraphrasing, and he's going to bring all the tribes together. So you saw a little increment in it in the mid 1900s. I remember watching that movie. I think it had James Brown, Celia Cruz, Tito Puente. You had a lot of other musicians there. It was pretty much showing Sheila E. and all that. I think Hector Lavoe, Willie Colon. It was showing you how the tribes was getting together, coming back together. So, damn, lost my train of thought. What was it? Damn, it was something I wanted to pull up and show. Oh, Black Panthers, Young Lords, Brown Pride. Let me see. So, all right. I'm going to see if I can find an image. So, these are a couple of images up. Damn. If you can see, I put in Black Panthers, Young Lords, and Brown Pride. And as you can see, that's the Puerto Rican flag. You scroll on down, you got the Chicanos. And like I said, this is all history, you ought to know. The Brown Pride. And a lot of those so-called Mexicans had a lot of, songs, which some of them were in Spanish, So you had to look up, translate it to the English. A lot of spiritual songs, man. You know, talk about revolution, um, deliverance, fighting for freedom, etc. But ultimately we know, Yahweh Shah is going to be our deliverer. But this is the AI overview. It says, I'm not going to read everything, but it said the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords organization, and the Brown Berets were all influential organizations in the Black Power and Chicano movements, with the Young Lords and Black Panthers even forming the Rainbow Coalition in Chicago. The Rainbow Coalition brought together these groups along with working class, to address issues like police brutality and substandard housing. Um, so I'm gonna read all three. So the Black Panther Party, a revolutionary organization that advocated for black nationalism, socialism, and armed self-defense against police brutality. A good documentary to look up is the Young Lords and the Brown Pride, Brown Berets. So it says, and we understand this was all compromised, but ultimately it wasn't of Yahweh Shem Shah. But I'm just affirming this because that's just showing you how the tribes were coming together, and ultimately Esau had to dismantle it because it was a force to be reckoned with. So it says, this is Black Panther Party still. Focus on community survival programs, including free breakfast programs and health clinics. Key figures include Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. Young Lords Organization, a Puerto Rican community organization that emerged in East Harlem and Chicago, focused on issues faced by Puerto Ricans, including police brutality. Oh my God, it sounds like the same, right? Poverty and housing curses. The scripture talks about Israel and Judah was oppressed together. Engage in direct action campaigns like occupations and protests, founded by Jose Chacha Jimenez. So the Brown Berets, a pro-Chicano paramilitary organization that emerged during the Chicano movement, founded by David Sanchez and Carlos Montes, inspired by the Black Panther Party. Let me look up more on the Brown Berets. So there you go. The Brown Berets, a Brown Beret, hold on, a pro-Chicano Yeah, 1960s. But prior to 1960s, the civil rights, shit was critical, man. It wasn't, hey, Jake was somewhat on point. Jake was taking a stance. And that's why, ultimately, that's how we ultimately know civil rights was not for our people. That was after they brought in civil rights, it's like everything disbanded, everything fell. That was our last, civil prior to the civil rights. That was Jake's last stronghold. You can look up more on that. I'm also going to do some more research on that too. Yeah. Founded in 1966 in L.A. We all know that L.A., Los Angeles, Cali is a heavy presence of Israelites, and they're very different from the Israelites on the East Coast. I know that for sure. Those Israelites, so-called Mexicans in Texas, um, what is that? I believe Arizona, um, and Cali, all that. The West Coast. The West Coast Israelites are way different than uh, Israelites here on the East Coast, man. So when you get around those Israelites, so-called Mexicans on the West Coast, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, hey, like for instance, Kid Frost. Kid Frost, La Raza, and there's so much more. That's just the first one that comes to my mind. You can. It's a lot of Chicano rap. A lot of Chicano rap speak about the struggle and poverty and the oppression and the police brutality. That Esau showed them. And I also not too long ago I stumbled across some so-called Native American rappers that also was talking about the injustice and the police brutality and the pain and the agony and the suffering that they go through. So continuing on, I didn't even mean to make it this long. So it says, yeah. So going, this is the fourth one in how did Native Americans become almost extinct. It says traditional practices were banned and indigenous governance structures were dismantled. This weakened Native societies and contributed to long-term trauma. And this is why they even fucked up to this day. Those curses. Verse 5. And it's not a coincidence. Because damn near, I'm be honest with you, man, if you really don't look up or check out for so-called Native American, you would really believe that they're not even here. But you go like more so to like Oklahoma, I believe, Oklahoma, North Dakota, South Dakota. I might be mistaken. Iowa, Idaho. Those, the mid, or the mid, not the Midwest state, but the states close to Cali region. Those desert, um, like places. If you mountain, you get what I'm saying. You'll see them there. It's evident. I'm talking about the dark skin or the long wavy, the long straight hair. I mean, you'll see them sporadically on the East Coast, but not as like you'll see them over there. Um, but and again, going back to if you don't know your history, again, it's bound to repeat. And one thing due to the trauma that has going into like the Lamentations 1. What else you have? Damn. Damn, I can't remember right now. But if you don't know your again, if you're not in tune with your history, you don't know what's going on. Hey, you're going to look for leisure and pleasure and material outlets to erase that history because the atrocities was devastating on our people. A lot of our people are not right. Our people are fucked up mentally because of the devastation that Esau did to us. He not only physically destroyed us, he mentally destroyed us, man. You know? So yeah, like I said, this weakened Native societies and contributed to long-term trauma. 5. Ecological destruction and resource loss. Colonial expansion and settlement disrupted hunting, fishing, and agriculture. Bison slaughter in Great Plains removed a key resource from many tribes. Deforestation, pollution, and overhunting made it harder for tribes to sustain themselves. So, let me see. So, summary: the near extinction of Native Americans wasn't due to a single event, but rather a centuries-long process of colonization, disease, displacement, and violence. While many nations and tribes suffered massive population losses, it's important to note that Native peoples and cultures have survived and continue to resist and recover today. So let's let you know right there that they're fucked up mentally still because the devastation and atrocities that Esau did to our people. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this thing up. Lord's will, you've edified. With that, let me say shalom. One thing also, like the scripture says, this is why we, the scripture tells us, come back to Yahweh Shem Shah, because this is our only comfort. Because again, the devastation that happened to our people it was like no other. We never got paid back. We never got restored. We never had vengeance. We never got revenge. And not even that. The humiliation is still thrown in front of our face. You know, the how the way Esau flips things around and he paints the picture as if he's the hero and as we're the villain. You know, we're told to shut up through our atrocities, because so-called Puerto Ricans and Latinos, Hispanic, Native American, we bring these things up. We're called a crybaby. We're told to shut up. But Amalek and the so-called white people, they can cry and cry a river, and everybody hears them. Like going into the rich man, he says things which he ought not, but everybody listens. But when the poor people speak, hey, we're told to shut up. We're overthrown. Who are these niggas? Who are these so-called Native Indians? Who are these spicks? Who are these wetbacks? Who are these criminals? Who are these bad guys? But those are who's edified. Shalom.